What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate reverse rants, no hate. So I want to talk about Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano. Listen, great fight, action-packed all the way through. Not disappointed in the fight itself. Okay, they delivered. Now I'm hearing a lot of different things from different people, and I hear a lot of bias going on. Okay, now. Y'all know, regardless to who the Charlos fight, I'm going with the Charlos. That's who I want to win. Okay, that's who I push to win. So all of that hate and nonsense, cut it out. I had it scored 7 rounds to 5 in favor of Brian Castano. Now, let me just say this, because there's not a whole lot to it. I mean, there's a lot that can be said, but it's really not necessary because we do this so often. And we're really saying the same things about different fighters, okay? Great fight, like I said. Salute both fighters. Castano, with that pressure he was bringing, you know, that's the way he fights. He's a pressure fighter. And once he see that he can get in, the easier you make it for him to get in, he will get in. And he's going to do work, okay? And he goes upstairs, he goes downstairs. Now, Jermell Charlo, I'm going to tell you something that if he does, and if he would actually, he said he was listening to his brother, he's listening to his trainer and all, everything, so he just was in a dogfight, okay? So, those things that they should have been telling him, if he just wasn't doing it, okay, then that's a mistake of the fighter, okay? That's on him. But, you see, whenever he jabs, Castano he would kind of stand, freezing his tracks. He wasn't coming in. What Jermell was doing, he was going, he would jab. If he throw his jab a little quicker, just pop it out, just snap his jab out a little. And with the lateral movement he could have used, the angles he could have used, and more consistent with the jab. More consistent. And then when you counter, don't be predictable. Counter with 2 and 3s, 3 and 4s. Not just winging shots, but I mean just quick, rapid shots. Not all the time. Not all the time. Because he definitely was in counter-punch mode. And he's been fighting like that since he lost to Tony Harrison. He's been more of a counter-puncher. But he hurt Castano a couple of times. Castano hurt him. It was a great fight. But if you watch when Jermell would shoot the jab, he would slide back a little bit and just kind of stand there. So jab, and then stand there and wait for Castano to catch up with him. Where's the movement? He, like his brother, like Errol Spence, have this I can box, but it's boring to me type thing. People don't understand that the discipline that you need, okay, to be an elite fighter can be the difference with you losing to a guy that's even not that good. Now, Castano is good. He's a solid fighter, and he has been, okay? He had a split decision draw with Lara. The guy is a good fighter. Where people is knocking him is because he's not that well known of a fighter. Popularity and what you're capable of doing doesn't always have anything to do with the other. Okay, look at Terrence Crawford. So, for people who don't know who he is, they're like, I don't even know this guy. How's he going to beat Canelo? Well, first off, he's not fighting Canelo unless Canelo is going to come down to 154, which I doubt Canelo's going to do that. So that's one fight we'll probably never see is Canelo versus Jermell Charlo. All right? That Canelo has nothing to do with that. Now, some of you are saying shit like, oh, Jermell didn't win 1 round. Or I gave him only 1 round. That's pure bullshit. Now, you're entitled to your opinion, but that's just bullshit. Dude won more than 1 round. I had it 7-5 for Castano. I thought Castano won the fight. But then you got to look at things that people factor in. Now, I've never been a fan of, well, you got to give it to the hometown guy in a close fight, or you got to give it to the champion in a close fight. If it's a fight where nobody showed dominance and you actually really just didn't win, okay, yeah. But for you to actually win the fight, even though, because you didn't knock the guy down or knock him down multiple times, or I mean, what is it? I've seen fights where a guy may throw 50 punches, the other guy throws 40 punches. You know, the guy that throws 50 punches lands 30. Okay? 30 of his 50. The other guy lands 18 of his 40. The guy that landed the 18, okay, 10 of them were power shots. The guy that landed, 30, 5 of his were power shots. So how did he lose that round? Simply because he landed less power shots? Points are points. If they don't count, then why have a point system? So I never agreed with that, the way but his power shots are. Now, a lot of times, if you have a fight where a guy is landing shots and it's showing, you see the guy hand snapping back, he's buckling the guy, they're going to say his shots were more effective. So people, they look at different things to judge that by. And Jermell, like I said, he hurt Castano several times in that fight. He hurt Jermell. It was a back and forth. It was closer, a lot closer than they tried to make it sound. A lot of people that was just talking off their emotion of the fight. And I think that they should have random drug testing for the judges as well, because the guy that scored 115 to 111, he was probably high as a fucking kite, because no. And I'm a guy who pushes for Jermell Charlo. And I'm telling you, in my opinion, Jermell Charlo did not win that fight. Now, one of the worst things Jermell Charlo can do is get an attitude if people are saying that he lost. I'm not talking about the one saying fuck him, he's a bum and all that. No. No, not that. I'm talking about the fact that people are just saying, plain and simple, he didn't win the fight. I don't think he won the fight. I don't give a shit anyway how people feel, about me telling the truth, regardless. Or I wouldn't say it. But at the end of the day, he lost. Just like him giving his opinion about Wilder and Fury, right? No need for people to try to, I'm not supporting his career, whatever. So don't take that sore loser route because people are saying that they think you lost. Just, I thought he beat Tony Harrison the first time. The judges didn't. Plain and simple. But, I'm not into rematches, okay? Unless I really can feel like it's a reason for a rematch. This fight deserves a rematch. This fight definitely deserves a rematch. And if you guys been listening to me, you understand I'm always telling you guys, not just for tall fighters, but especially when you have a tall fighter versus a short fighter, and these guys are fighting so close, they don't believe in the power of the jab, man. He was throwing his jab, but he was throwing his jab, and then he'd back himself into a corner. He would go straight back, not so much into the corner, literally, but like he'll get by the ropes and just stand there and wait for Castano to come in. You know what I'm saying? And what happens is, even when you're throwing that counter shot, especially that counter left hook, you rocked them several times, but at some point, if your opponent's paying attention to, okay, he's catching me with that hook, his corner man's telling him the right thing, they're going to make the adjustments. But if you basically, it just comes down to grit versus grit. Understand, Castano has fast hands too, so on the inside, he was able to throw these combinations. Now, a lot of punches he was throwing wasn't landing. The fans were just going nuts because his hands is moving. Now, they're in Jermell's hometown, but people are, I don't know. A lot of times the judges do get persuaded by the, volume punching. But at the same time, I felt like he outlanded Jermell Charlo. And he, outworking the guy, throwing more punches don't mean that you want to fight if your punches are not landing. Even with a lot of the shots that he was missing, he was just busy, constantly busy, kept coming in, and he outworked Jermell Charlo by landing shots. He missed a lot, but he landed a lot, and I felt like he landed more than Jermell Charlo. I thought he won the fight. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make excuses and try to play neutral to his credit, it was a great fight. I don't think either guy has a reason to hold their head down about nothing. I feel like the wrong decision came out. But it would have been worse if Castano would have had a loss. If he'd have lost, it would have been worse. So because it wasn't the right decision, as far as I'm concerned, I thought Castano won. A draw is better than calling it a loss, man. And I'm gonna be real with you. Whenever you have a hometown hero and the fight comes to a draw, more than likely the hometown hero lost. And instead of them taking, awarding the title to the winner, well, it was a draw. And usually that's how that goes. This is, man, and look, PBC fighters, this is the third draw, man. I mean, this fight was a draw. There was 2 more fights that was a draw. I can't remember who the hell it was at this moment, and they were all PBC fighters. And this whole situation at some point, I'm not even going to say it's going to get out of hand, because really it already has gotten out of hand. If it doesn't change, it's not helping anything, because, when people ooh and ah, and they cheer it and they're going crazy, what kills that momentum is when the wrong decision is given. Because even now, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm pulling for the Charlos. I don't care who I'm pulling for. If I think you lost, I'm going to say I think you lost. I'm not going to say, because I like Charlo better as a fighter. I'm going to say Charlo won. Nah, I think Charlo won. I think Charlo lost that fight. And like I said, I had it scored 5 rounds to Charlo, 7 to Castano. And pretty much that's a close fight. But I thought Castano won the fight. I didn't feel like, it could have went either way. I felt like Castano won. So they need to sharpen up on these judges, on their judging skills. The thing is this, why I try to limit what I'm saying about all of this, because we've been saying the same things all the time. Because it's like they just won't get it right all the time. Sometimes they will. When it comes to big fights, especially something like what boxing has been starving for, a big fight, not just a big name, a big fight, a great fight, something they could walk away from saying that was a great fight. But again, when the decision is screwed up, it's like, okay, but I think that draw is more fair than a loss for Castano, because I think he should have got the decision. This was for undisputed. And if anything, they'll do it again. And Charlo needs to understand, his trainers, need to understand, if he doesn't have to sit, nobody's telling him to be the second coming of Ali and dance and dance and dance. Nobody's saying that. And I ain't have a problem with Ali doing it, because when he was doing it in his prime, he did it the right way anyway. But I'm talking about him as a fighter. If you watch the fight, what I'm saying, if you saw the fight, you see what I'm saying. When he's shooting his jab out, Castano would stop, and because he has a long reach. But instead of him even throwing the counters off the jab, sidestepping, not being right there for Castano to get in, because Castano wants to come in a straight line and back you up. At any time Jermell Charlo back hits the ropes, he starts loading his shots up. And it was the same thing every time. Where's the movement? With a guy like Castano, you have to really, 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 really be in shape, because the most consistent punch that needs to be coming from Jermell Charlo against a guy like Castano is his jab. And not be predictable. Jab to the body. Like I said, move. Don't stand up there and give him feint. Use your feints. Don't be predictable with your shots. Don't be predictable with your counters. And when you do throw a counter, it's like, don't just, a lot of times when you get a fighter hurt, they just jump in and just start throwing and hope something lands. When it's more calculated, you'll get a guy out of it. But you'll even hear the commentators say things like, just let your hands go and something will land. It doesn't always happen that way. It didn't happen last night. But it was a great fight, and I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch between these two. I don't want to see a rematch between guys because they make excuses about why they lost. For me, I'm not interested in that. If you lost, you lost. Okay, simple. Imagine this. Imagine a fighter, has a bad night. Even with the bad night, you're going to have people say, I don't want to hear that bad night. You just lost. But just imagine, out of all the kind of excuses you've been hearing lately from different fighters, wouldn't this sound a whole lot better, a lot classier? Look, I just had a bad night, man. I couldn't do what I needed to do. And honestly, The better man won. He did what he was supposed to. He was able to execute his plan. I couldn't execute mine. So, obviously, he did what he had to do. The bad night was because he had the better strategy. He was able to get to me, and I couldn't get to him the way I wanted to. You know, but I want to do this again because I know, you know, I can do better than what I did, or I'm going to take the learning experience from this fight and definitely see what went wrong. And then hopefully we can do it again. Now, doesn't that sound that much better? Because if you had a bad night, okay, more than likely the bad night was, I mean, and you do, people do have bad nights. Shit just happens. Not just in boxing, just anything. You can go to your job today and just, it's just not there. You just, man, my energy's not there. Or things that you normally know. Sometimes you just have those days when things are not clicking for you. It happens. But again, what I'm saying, you know, when you make excuses about why you lost, it ends up being a situation where you go back, because I've heard many fighters. I remember Ernie Shaver saying that he was hurt when he fought Holmes. And I know I could beat Holmes. And they fought a second time. All of a sudden, he claimed he was hurt in that fight too. But it was always after he lost. Buddy McGirt fought Pernell Whitaker, same thing. Oh, my shoulder, I was hurt in the fight. And this and that, they fought the second time, and Pernell beat him even worse in the rematch. You know, there's always excuses. So, you know what? Just, he did what he had to do. A lot of times, it's not because you had a bad night, because just, you know, I'm in there with a migraine headache, or I feel sick to my stomach, or just something. No, it's not even that. And those things happen to people. But I'm talking about the fact that you go in there was nothing wrong with you. You didn't have a fever, you didn't have a headache, right? You wasn't sick to your stomach. No, nothing like that. You know what happened? That guy was better than you thought. A guy like Bernard Hopkins, a prime Bernard Hopkins, even Bernard, around the time he fought Kelly Pavlik, that Bernard Hopkins would give Jermell Charlo problems. Because Bernard Hopkins is a guy that knows how to adjust to what you're doing with sneaky tactics. Little shit that he can get away with. And Jermell Charlo, he has ability. He has skill. I'm not sure how well he is at making adjustments, because I didn't see him make any adjustments in the fight. It just became a dog fight. And I'm like, do you realize your physical gifts? And I think people just don't understand what that means when I say that. These fighters are making fights harder for themselves. They're making the fight harder than what it really needs to be. So, Jermell Charlo, again, him and Castano put a great fight on. But when you have a guy that's crafty enough to just take advantage of your mistakes, that's what I'm saying about Hopkins. He would know how to capitalize on what Jermell Charlo is not doing right. And he'd be able to employ all these little sneaky tactics and things, little sneaky shots, and, you know, wind up tiring Jermell Charlo out. Jermell Charlo, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he can't fight. The guy can fight. But his ring IQ, how sharp he is. If you watch fights, like I tell people, watching fighters, being able to say the date and the place that Mike Tyson fought Buster Douglas, or what year in place Ali, you know, or Fort Frazier. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Watching fights and studying fights are two different things. When you watch a fight, what do you walk away with, knowledge-wise? What did you take from that? How can I take what I saw and employ that into my own skill? This is what I'm saying. If you're just watching fights, you know, just watching fights, and, oh yeah, I know all the old greats, yeah, that's not the same thing. Because it feels like to me that these fighters watch these older fighters and go, yeah, good fight. Well, he did it his way, I'm going to do it my way. Because there's just a certain level, a certain mindset, a certain level of being elite that people just don't understand. You're not going to get there when you're making, like, clearly just making bad decisions in the ring and not correcting them. You have to have that understanding, like, okay, my reach is much longer than his. There's no way. And it's not like Castano was coming in side to side movement. No, he's being patient to get in. Jermell was making it easy for him, because when he would jab, his jab was, he was throwing the jab. But he was just throwing the jab, not to set him up, but to get distance. And then he'd throw it, and then stand still and let him catch up to him. that just defeats the purpose. You know, throw that jab, use your feints, you be first. You know, don't let him get comfortable. Don't let him get complacent with, okay, as soon as he stop, I'm gonna come in. You know, and again, these little things that people, the fighters themselves don't think mean anything, it really does. It means a lot. Because when you talk about Manny Pacquiao, what's one of the first things you talk about with Pacquiao? Right? His foot movement and how he throws punches off weird angles. Yeah, that means his opponents is not expecting punches to come from those angles that he's throwing from. Okay? When Juan Manuel Marquez caught him, how did he catch him? He caught him in a straight coming in a straight line. Right? Not saying that a fighter can't get caught, no. But when you get to the point where it's like, okay, let me put it to you like this. It would be like Shaquille O'Neal trying to outplay Dan Marley from the perimeter instead of in the paint, where his physical gifts is going to come out better where? In that paint. First off, he's not going to beat Dan Marley in a shootout. He needs to play his game. This is what I'm saying about Jermell Charlo. You know, and other fighters who they have reach advantages, height advantages, but they stand and fight in a fucking phone booth. And if you're worried about the fans booing you, if you're worried about, or just that lack of discipline, oh man, that's just boring. You're going to make fights eat harder than they need to be. And one of the worst feelings that you can have as a fighter is to know you lost a fight because you beat yourself fighting the wrong strategy. But that's up to each fighter to employ their skills. You know, for a fighter to think, for people to think, oh man, it's boring when you dance and move and jab, and well, okay. They don't seem to be any happier with Jermell Charlo because of the decision of the judges. You know, and that is not fair to the fighter. But the next fight he has, now his hometown is going to cheer for him. But if wherever he fights, if it's, overall, if it's not in his hometown or regardless, it's like people are going to show. They want to see you lose when you have a fight like that and the wrong decision comes out. And you're going to hear all this nonsense. You're going to finally, I always feel like, you're fighting against the naysayers and the non-believers, but at the same time, you got to look at fighters. Errol Spence said one of his favorite fighters is Terry Norris. And let me tell you something. In terms of skill, Terry Norris was as good as anybody I've ever seen. Terry Norris was a bad dude. You know what Terry Norris lacked? He didn't have that discipline to not do careless shit. I like Terry Norris as much as I like any other fighter. Right? Out of all the fighters that I do like as fighters, he's one of them. Terry Norris would tear your ass up and then just lose focus, man, and allow the wrong thing to happen. If he could, and I like people, oh, he didn't have the best chin. No, he could take a punch way better at one point than he did later on in his career, definitely. But regardless, if he kept the discipline, because if you watch when Terry would lose, until they just got to the point where his skills started deteriorating and the brain damage was starting to happen, and we wasn't aware of that at that point. And it happened early in his career because he started early, so he had a lot of wear and tear. But at the end of the day, you start to see him get hit one good punch, and he's winning the fight, and it was out of carelessness. So fighters need to get back on their game, on top of their game. Never fall in love with lies. Remember, the truth brings hate out of people, and I will catch y'all on the next video.